Arthur's family truth. My granddaughter Ivy grabbed my sleeve at the park. She kept glancing toward the playground. Then she leaned in close and whispered something. I didn't react. But the way she said it didn't feel right. My son-in-law had been handling everything since my daughter died. I trusted him for years. I didn't ask questions. But sitting there at the park watching the way Ivy kept looking over her shoulder, something about it didn't sit right with me. That Saturday in September, Ivy and I were doing our usual thing. Every other weekend I'd take her to Riverside Park. Chocolate chip cone for me, strawberry swirl for her. She was telling me about a spelling test, how she'd gotten an A, and I told her I was proud of her. She smiled the way Willa used to smile, and for a second the whole world felt okay. Then she stopped talking completely. She leaned into me and grabbed my sleeve with both hands, the way kids do when they're telling you something they're not supposed to tell. Grandpa, she whispered. Don't send him anything else. Just watch him. You'll see. I looked at her. What do you mean, sweetheart? She chewed her lip. The lady brings food to the storage place. Daddy says it's a secret. He says I'm never ever supposed to tell. She let go and hopped off the bench. We have to go. He gets mad if I'm late. And that was it. She wouldn't say another word the whole drive back to Brad's house on Maple Street. When we pulled up, Brad was waiting on the front steps, arms crossed. He barely looked at Ivy when she got out of the car. She went straight inside with her head down. I stood on the sidewalk for a minute, watched through the window as Brad walked right past her, phone to his ear, not even a glance her direction. I drove home with my hands tight on the steering wheel. The lady brings food to the storage place. Daddy says it's a secret. I've been fixing cars for 30 years. I know what it sounds like when something's wrong under the hood. Not always a loud noise, sometimes just a small vibration, a feel that something's off. That's what I had the whole drive home, a feeling that something was very wrong. That night I spread out 7 years of bank statements on my kitchen table. $30,000 every January like clockwork. Not once had Brad sent me a receipt, a photo, a school report, anything showing how the money was used. Not once had he called just to talk. Every year around November, same routine, he'd text me asking if I could send the payment early. House expenses. Ivy's school stuff. It was always something. And every year I said yes, because family helps family. Looking at those statements laid out across the table, 7 years of them in a row, I didn't feel like a man who'd helped his family. I felt like a man who'd been played for a fool. I just didn't know how badly yet. I picked up my phone and called Roger Kimball. Roger Kimball has been my closest friend for 35 years. We met when our kids were in the same elementary school. He spent 30 years as a detective before he retired, and even now, at 66, he still carries a small notebook in his shirt pocket everywhere he goes. Old habit. Some habits you don't break. He was at Mercer's Auto the next morning at 7 a.m. Coffee in hand, notebook already open on the workbench. I told him everything. Ivy at the park, the whisper, the storage place, the lady who brings food, the secret Brad told her to keep. Roger didn't interrupt. He just wrote things down and listened the way he always does. Not the polite nodding most people do, but real listening, like he's filing every word somewhere useful. When I finished, he looked up. When's the last time Brad gave you a receipt? An update? Anything showing how that $30,000 was actually spent? I didn't answer because we both already knew. 7-year-olds don't talk like that unless something's wrong, he said. She wasn't telling you a story. She was scared. He closed the notebook. You want my help? I said yes before he finished the question. We ran surveillance for 4 days. Roger still had equipment from his detective years, cameras, long lenses, all legal for private investigation. We parked down the street from Brad's house on Maple Street every morning in Roger's gray sedan, the kind of car nobody looks at twice. Brad's routine was simple. Up at 7, out by 7:45, home around 6. Steady as a clock. On day 2, a woman showed up at his house mid-afternoon. Silver sedan. She walked straight to the front door and used a key. Roger photographed the license plate without a word. They sat together on the couch, comfortable, easy. The kind of comfortable that doesn't develop overnight. On day 4, Brad didn't head to his office. Instead, he drove east across town into the industrial district warehouses, loading docks, gravel lots. He pulled in front of a large brick building marked 447 on the side, went in through a side door, and stayed 45 minutes. That's not a work stop, Roger said, writing down the address. We went back the next day and watched the same thing. Same door, same 45 minutes. That night I couldn't sleep. I ended up standing in the living room at midnight, just staring at the brass urn on the mantel, the way I'd done 100 times before. I'd kept it there for nearly 7 years, never touched it, never opened it, couldn't bring myself to. Then I remembered something Margaret had told me a few weeks before she passed. She'd whispered that she tucked a small handwritten note inside the urn, something she'd written for Willa, words she wanted to stay with her. I had completely forgotten about it until that moment. Standing there alone in the dark, I carried the urn to the kitchen table and sat down under the light. My hands weren't steady when I unscrewed the lid. Inside was a clear plastic bag, dark powder, looked exactly like what you'd expect. Then I opened the bag. The smell hit me before anything else. Not the faint, sterile emptiness of ash. Not nothing. Coffee, rich, dark, fresh coffee. And underneath it, warm and sweet cinnamon. I poured it onto the table. Coffee grounds, ground cinnamon mixed throughout. I went through the whole pile with my fingers, looking for anything, a bone fragment, any trace of what should have been there. Nothing. Just grocery store ingredients, and the smell was fresh. Not 7-year-old fresh. Recent fresh, like someone had refilled it within the last few weeks. That detail hit me harder than anything else. It wasn't just that the urn was fake. It was that someone had been maintaining the lie, coming back to it, keeping it fresh so I'd never think to question it. I sat at that table for I don't know how long. Then I picked up my phone and called Roger. He answered on the second ring, voice groggy. "Roger," I said, "the urn is fake." Silence, then fully awake. "What do you mean fake?" I opened it. It's coffee grounds and cinnamon, fresh, like it was refilled recently. I heard him sit up. "Don't touch anything else. Don't clean it up. I'm on my way." He was there in 15 minutes. He photographed everything. The urn, the contents spread on the table, the plastic bag, the twist tie. He was in full detective mode, quiet and methodical. And I just sat there watching him work because I didn't trust myself to speak without my voice breaking. Margaret had stood in this house and kissed that brass urn and said goodbye to our daughter through it. She died believing Willa's ashes were on that mantel. And the whole time it was coffee. It was nothing. It was a cruel joke that cost my wife her will to live. When Roger finished documenting, he sat down across from me. "I'm going to reach out to a contact who can run the warehouse address and pull public camera footage from that block," he said. "Legal channels only. Give me 48 hours. I nodded. Didn't say much else. He left around 2 a.m. I sat at that kitchen table until sunrise. Didn't clean up the coffee grounds. Didn't move the urn from the floor where I'd knocked it. Just sat there thinking about 7 years of payments and a closed casket and a wife who broke in half because she thought her daughter was gone. 48 hours later, Roger called and told me to come over right away. He had something to show me. Roger's dining room table looked like a detective's war room. Folders, printed photos, a laptop open with 2 windows side by side. He poured me coffee without asking and told me to sit down. "I had a contact pull public camera footage from the block around Building 447, he said. "Traffic monitoring, all legal." He turned the laptop toward me. "Watch this." The footage was black and white, wide shot of East Industrial Avenue, a timestamp in the corner, cars passing, a delivery truck. Then a woman entered the frame from the left, walking along the sidewalk toward the warehouse entrance. Roger paused it. "Look at her face." The image wasn't sharp, but it didn't need to be. I knew that walk. I knew the way that head tilted slightly to the left when she moved. I'd seen it at the breakfast table, at her high school graduation, on her wedding day. "That's not possible," I said. Roger opened a second window. On the left, Willa's driver's license photo from 7 years ago. On the right, a still frame from the footage. Older, no smile, darker hair pulled back, but the same face, 97% match, Roger said quietly. "Facial recognition software, Daniel. That's Willa." I grabbed the edge of the table. She wasn't dead. My daughter had been alive this entire time. While Margaret fell apart. While I stood at a cemetery and talked to a headstone. While I wired $30,000 every January believing I was honoring a promise to a dead woman. Willa was 3 miles away in a warehouse. Roger wanted to wait. Plan it out. Approach her during the day when she came outside. Do it carefully. He was right. I knew he was right. I went home anyway and sat in my driveway for 20 minutes staring at the steering wheel. Then I drove to East Industrial Avenue. Roger was already parked across the street when I pulled up. Of course he was. Couldn't sleep either, he said. If we're doing this, he told me, we do it my way. We go in calm. We listen, no matter what she says. We listen first. The side door was unlocked. Inside, the warehouse was cold and dark, the kind of cold that gets into your bones. High ceilings, industrial shelving, shadows everywhere. But in the back corner, past all of it, someone had built a small life. A cot with blankets worn thin. A hot plate on a card table. Clothes hanging on wires strung between two support posts. A battery-powered lamp throwing weak yellow light across the concrete floor. And on the wall above the cot, photographs of Ivy. Every school picture, every birthday photo I had ever forwarded to Brad. The one from last summer at the park where she'd lost her front tooth. All of them, taped carefully in rows, covering the whole wall above where she slept. He had been bringing them to her. There was a notebook on the cot, thick, worn cover, pages swollen from years of use. I picked it up and opened to the first page. Day 1, Brad says it'll only be a few months. I set it back down. Then the cot shifted and Willa looked up and saw me. 7 years. She was thinner than I'd ever seen her, cheekbones too sharp, wrists too small. Dark circles under her eyes. She held herself like someone always ready to flinch. But those eyes, those were the same eyes. Dad, just that one word, barely a sound. I'm not proud of what came out of me next. I was angry. After 7 years of grief, after Margaret, after $210,000 in a brass urn full of coffee grounds, the anger came out before anything else could get through. I said things too loud and too hard, and Willa pressed herself back against the wall like she was used to people coming at her. Roger stepped between us. Daniel, stop. Look at her. I stopped. I really looked. This wasn't someone who had run away to start a new life somewhere comfortable. This was someone who had been surviving on the bare minimum for 7 years, the scars on her forearms, the way she couldn't quite hold eye contact. This was a woman who had been broken down slowly over a very long time. Roger crouched near her, calm and steady. Willa, we're not here to hurt you. We want to understand what happened. Can you tell us? She looked at him, then at me, then at the photos of Ivy on the wall, and she told us. 7 years ago, she and her best friend Sandra Fowler got into an argument over money. Sandra had borrowed and never paid back $5,000 that Willa needed to help with a down payment on a house. The argument got loud. Willa pushed Sandra to get her out of her face. Sandra stumbled backward, hit the corner of the coffee table, and went down hard. There was blood. Sandra wasn't moving. Willa panicked and called Brad. He came home, checked on Sandra, looked up at Willa and said she was gone. Then he told Willa she was looking at prison time, that even if it was an accident, even if it was self-defense, Natalie's family, she caught herself and corrected, Sandra's family would push hard for charges. That Willa would lose everything, lose Ivy. He said he knew how to make it disappear. He just needed her to trust him. She trusted him. He was her husband. He brought her to this warehouse that same night, told her to stay while he arranged everything. The accident on Route 9, the fire. The body he obtained through Gerald Moss, a contact at the county morgue, someone who had passed with no family to claim them. The paperwork, the funeral, the urn. Then he came back and told her it was done. Everyone thought she was gone. Now she just had to wait until it was safe to come out. She asked every few months when that would be. He always had a reason it wasn't time yet. The police were still asking questions. Sandra's family had hired someone. People were still talking. Just a little longer. A little longer became 7 years. When she finished, Roger was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out his phone. Willa, he said carefully, have you actually seen any proof of what Brad told you? Have you seen anything that confirms Sandra didn't make it? She stared at him. I saw her fall. I saw how bad it was. Head wounds bleed a lot, Roger said. Even minor ones can look catastrophic. He turned the phone toward her. This photo was taken 6 weeks ago at a coffee shop on Main Street. Willa looked at the screen. The color left her face. It was Sandra Fowler, sitting at a table with a coffee cup, smiling at something off camera, healthy, alive. That's not possible, Willa whispered. It's very possible, Roger said. When the whole thing was staged, Roger showed Willa everything he had. Photos of Brad and Sandra together at a restaurant 2 years ago. The same restaurant, 1 year ago, a hotel receipt from Newark 6 months back. They had been together for nearly 10 years, long before Brad ever married Willa. The fight had been rehearsed. Sandra knew exactly how to fall, where to fall, how to make it look bad, theatrical makeup, fake blood. Brad came home on cue, confirmed what Willa was already terrified to believe, and walked her straight into 7 years of isolation. And the whole time he collected $30,000 a year from me. $210,000 total. An insurance agent who knew exactly how to sell a story and keep someone paying into it. Willa sat on that cot for a long time without saying anything. Then she looked up at me with those hollow eyes and said, "He let Mom die thinking I was gone." "Yes," I said. There was nothing else to say. She was quiet again. Then, "What do we need to do?" Roger had already been in contact with Detective Arthur Grady from the County Fraud Division, a man Roger had worked alongside for 15 years before retiring. Solid cop, the kind who does the job right and doesn't cut corners. The plan was straightforward. Willa would wear a wire. Brad came to the warehouse every few days like clockwork. When he showed up, she would confront him not with screaming, not with accusations, but calmly. Get him talking. Let him explain himself, the way arrogant people always do when they think they've already won. If anything felt dangerous, she would say one word: "Ivy." Arthur's team would be through the door before the sentence finished. Willa didn't hesitate. "He took 7 years from me," she said. "He used my daughter. He let your wife go to her grave thinking I was dead." She looked at Roger. "Tell me what to wear and where to stand." Arthur fitted the wire himself the next afternoon, tested the signal twice, and walked Willa through every detail. Roger and I would be parked 50 yards down the street, Arthur's team in unmarked vehicles on both ends of the block, everyone in position by 7 p.m. Brad arrived at 8:52 with Sandra in the passenger seat. I watched through binoculars as they crossed the parking lot and went in through the side door. In my earpiece, I heard the door close, footsteps on concrete. Then Brad's voice, easy and casual: "Willa, I brought you something tonight." A pause. Then his voice shifted. "You're not surprised to see her." Willa's voice came through the wire steady and clear. "I know everything, Brad." Silence. "I know Sandra is alive. I know what you did 7 years ago. I know about the body from the morgue, the accident, the urn. I know about the offshore account." A beat. "I know my father has been sending you $30,000 every year and that none of it ever went to Ivy." Brad tried to deny it for about 30 seconds. Then Sandra said, flatly, like she was discussing the weather, "How did you find out?" That was the moment. Once Sandra said those words, they both stopped pretending. Brad started talking. He explained the staged fight in careful detail, almost proud of it. Sandra described filling the urn herself, coffee, cinnamon, a couple of other spices from the kitchen cabinet. She said it the way you describe following a recipe. Brad talked about Gerald Moss at the county morgue, the body, the paperwork, the fire on Route 9. He talked about the flights booked for the next morning. Grand Cayman. New identities. 45,000 already transferred to an offshore account, the last of what was left after 7 years of living well on my money. Then Willa made a move none of us had planned. She told them she had nothing left here. She asked them to take her with them. Brad and Sandra went quiet. I could hear them whispering, just below what the wire could catch cleanly. Then Brad's voice came back low and cold. He said Willa was a liability. He said she knew too much. He said they couldn't risk her talking. Sandra said, "Then we make sure she doesn't." I was out of Roger's car before he could grab my arm. I hit that side door with my shoulder and it flew open. Brad had Willa by the arm. He let go the second he saw me. Then Arthur's team came through every entrance at once, 6 officers fast and quiet, the way trained people move when they've done this 100 times. Brad ran. Made it 3 steps before Arthur had him face down on the concrete with handcuffs clicking into place. Sandra didn't run. She just raised her hands slowly and stared straight ahead like getting arrested was a minor inconvenience. I crossed the warehouse and pulled Willa into my arms. She held on and didn't let go for a long time. The charges came quickly. Brad Wallace, fraud, conspiracy, grand theft of $210,000, false imprisonment, accessory to unlawful handling of human remains. Sandra Fowler, conspiracy, fraud, aiding false imprisonment, Gerald Moss, body theft, falsifying official records, conspiracy. All 3 pleaded not guilty. The wire recording made that argument very short. The jury heard Brad describe the staged fight in his own words. They heard Sandra call my $210,000 just business. They heard Brad threaten my daughter's life when she confronted him. Brad Wallace, 15 years, federal prison. Sandra Fowler, 12 years, Gerald Moss, 5 years, state prison. Brad's parental rights to Ivy were terminated. Family court granted me custody. The court ordered full restitution, $210,000 plus damages. Most of it had been spent. About $60,000 was recovered. Half went into a college trust for Ivy, a quarter to Willa to help her start over. The rest I donated to a women's shelter in Margaret's name. 6 months after the verdict, on a quiet Sunday morning in July, the three of us stood at Margaret's grave. Ivy held my hand. Willa crouched down and placed white roses at the base of the headstone, Margaret's favorite. Ivy studied the stone the way kids do when they sense something important. "Grandpa," she said softly, "do you think Grandma knows Mom's back?" I looked at Willa. She had her hand flat against the marble, eyes closed. "I think she knows," I said. "I really do." When we got home that evening, I took the brass urn off the mantel for the last time. In its place, I set Willa's notebook, worn cover, 7 years of daily entries, every page dated. I stood there for a moment and said what I needed to say out loud. "Margaret, she's home. And she never stopped writing to you. Willa works mornings at Mercer's Auto now. She's learning the business the same way I learned it from my father, slowly, with grease on her hands and questions she's not afraid to ask. Ivy comes by after school and sits on the workbench eating a snack while we argue about which classic truck I should restore next. It's not perfect. Some mornings are still hard. The anger comes back sometimes, and the grief doesn't follow a schedule. But we're building something real out of what's left, and we're doing it together. Here's what I want you to take from this, if anything. I'm a man who fixed cars for 30 years. I know how to spot a problem when something feels off. But for 7 years, I let grief blind me to every warning sign that was right in front of my face. I trusted the wrong person with my money, my granddaughter, and my daughter's memory, because it was easier than asking the hard questions. Don't wait 7 years to ask. Don't let your pain be the thing that keeps you from seeing clearly. A 7-year-old girl with a strawberry cone and 2 words of warning did what $210,000 in 7 years of silence never could. She brought my family back.